party. I've got a topic of Zionism queued up for us today. We're going to dive in, learn together, talk together, have a discussion. I always value your input, so join the conversation in the chat. I learn so much from you guys all the time on every platform. I'm on every platform at G. Mark Phillips. Before we jump in, let me remind you, if you're into playing the game of life and would like to check out the system that I created, it's right there. It's called One Life. That is a guide to creating a life that you love based on your mission, based on living a mission-driven life. You can learn more at thisismyonelife.com. It's the system that I use every day to do my media company and my product and apparel line, Focus and Flow, and create, they're off the screen now, but books and stuff like that, all based around, enhancing the human experience, talking about this game of life that we're all playing. Again, thisismyonelife.com. All right, Zionism. I've got this queued up on Instagram. Let's jump in.
Dear Zionists, please stop saying people have an issue with you because you are Jewish. A nearly 4,000-year-old religion rooted in the moral and spiritual foundation of the Ten Commandments, which include, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet anything that belongs to thy neighbor, and thou shalt have no other gods before me. People have an issue with you because of Zionism, a modern political movement established in 1897 that, whether you like it or not, revolves around murdering, stealing, bearing false witness against neighbors, coveting what belongs to neighbors, and worshiping the state of Israel above all else. Stop hiding behind false accusations of anti-Semitism and start speaking out against the very real violations of human rights perpetrated by the state of Israel. Dear Zionists.
Makes a good point. He makes a good point. I thought that was going to be a different one. Okay, wait a minute. Now, let me see. I think that was, okay, that's what. Now, this one was interesting. I wanted to roll in with this one. Here we go.
Dear Zionists.
No, that's the wrong one. Where did I see that? Let me get it queued up here. It was good. It was all about Facebook Meta.
Is that all?
Well, maybe we'll find it again. Where's the one? Let's see what Glenn Greenwald has to say.
Pled guilty in 2002.
Okay, so you can see that guy that is a Jewish rabbi. He pled guilty, and he did this to 3 males.
Fled to Israel with help from individuals within the Orthodox Jewish community.
So there are individuals who knew that he was abusing physically. The Jews helped him leave America, and they accepted him willingly into
I've heard that.
JCW tracked Young Pop down and confronted him with a hidden camera in Jerusalem, where he admitted to illegally fleeing the United States with help.
Well, how is it that the other Jews didn't feel like this was
Mr.
wrong?
Clean.
Because it's a part of their religion. You
Yeah.
look in the Talmud, it gives specific prescriptions of how, when, and why you can abuse.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. I've heard that. What did I read the other day? I mean, I think when Americans wake up to that fact that the modern state of Israel is like a haven, a protectionist state on P3DOs, I think when Americans realize that, they're going to hit the frickin' roof, because a lot of Americans, that's their thing. That's their hot button, as well it should be. Let's see what else here. This one was pretty good. Let's check this out.
How many civilians were killed on October 7th?
For Israel, let's say it was 800.
373.
Let's say they say it was 1,400.
No. Oh, it's amazing that you mentioned the number. Because October 7th.
Well, I didn't make it up.
No. You were right. October 7th, the first number that came out was 1,400.
Right.
Then it was revised to 1,200. Then the final was 1,129. 373 of them were civilians.
Right.
56 of them were military and police. So 370. Why do you think the number came down from 1,400 to 1,129?
Because it was inaccurate.
No.
Why?
According to Israeli official, because so many bodies were so burned and so stuck together, they could not distinguish the Hamas fighters from the Israeli hostages. Right? So that much fire that burns the body that much, do you think people with machine guns on motorcycle have that kind of fire? No, that was the firepower of tanks and Apache. And according to Israeli witnesses, Israel was a lot, according to a Hannibal directive, if people would like to actually look that up, Israel actually killed many of those hostages on the way out. As a matter of fact, one of the soldiers said, I saw a car running back to the borders, and I know that there were hostages, so I thought of killing everybody instead of taking them hostage. And that is so effective. You understand what this soldier said? He was like, okay, if they are dead, there's no hostages, there's no rescue effort. So now I have saved one shift. This is amazing. Basically, like their idea of not negotiating with terrorists is not have anything to negotiate about. And those pictures of cars that were incinerated and burned to a crisp, this is not the fire. And this is another thing that I want you to do, Chris, because nobody talks about this. The Hannibal Directive and how Israel has messed up this has been talked about for months in Israel, and not a single American news person has talked about that. How many civilians were killed on October 7th?
Yeah, I rarely hear about that, and that's pretty wild, you know. And yeah, I've heard that there was a lot of unaliving by Israel. Now, you know, you got to take what we hear in the news and the media with a grain of salt. Where is the one? Dan, this is good too. I'm going to be sharing this as a short here, but check this out.
I think Zionism, the idea of building a state of Jewish farmers on Arab land in the Middle East, is a stupid idea to begin with. I think it's a messianic idea. I think it's a superstitious idea. And I think
so the idea of Israel's right to exist is
now that it's there,
play with you.
Many states are founded on injustices or foolishness and bad ideas. Yeah, it doesn't mean that anyone can just come and evict or destroy them. And I'm not saying that, but I think I'd have to say, so as not to seem shady, I've always thought it's a silly, messianic, superstitious nationalist idea, and it's a waste of Judaism. And it guaranteed a quarrel with the Arabs because it meant we're going to take away from you what's most precious, your land, by trying to make Jews into peasants. Already a silly idea. That's not the way to rescue Central European Jewry, make them into farmers in Palestine. Guaranteed an injustice to the Arabs, which now anyone can see, and is now entering its third, fourth generation. Fourth generation of Palestinians brought up either in exile or dispossession or under occupation and humiliation. Something has to be done to address what is part of the original, let's not call it original sin, original misconception. But it should be a matter of principle. If Jews born in Brooklyn have a right to a state in Palestine, then Palestinians born in Jerusalem have a right to a state in Palestine.
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't agree with that principle, I think, is suspect.
I think most people do.
They do, but why in that case do we have the one and not the other? After all, it's America that pays for all this and arms the Israelis. I think Zionism.
That's Christopher Hitchens, by the way. I've heard his name. I forget who he is, or I should probably know this, but he makes great points. You know, people are waking up to the double standard for sure, and learning what's going on over there. Let's see what else we have here. I want to find the Dan Bilzerian video. Dan Bilzerian, whoever thought Dan Bilzerian would be at the forefront? I didn't. I just thought he was a playboy, you know, and I kind of viewed him as a kind of a poser, to be quite honest. I mean, you know, I think he kind of puts up a fake facade of what his life is, but he's got some substance, and I rethinking what I thought about him. Let's check this one out right here. 7.3 million views.
Now, when I began to look into this, I wondered, well, when and how did this start? And how did the U.S. come to have such a special relationship with Israel? Of course, many of you may be my age or possibly even older. One of the first things I learned was that when I was born, there was no Israel. It did not exist. There was Palestine. It was a region when I was born under the British Empire, before that under the Ottoman Empire. So when and how did the violence begin?
I'll get to you. I see your question. How's it going? It's good. Sorry about that. Just didn't want to interrupt the video. I appreciate your comment. I usually go through comments after the video.
Not thousands of years ago, the way people are often led to believe. In the late 1800s, the region was called Palestine, and it was without violence as it had been for centuries. The population was about 80% Muslim, about 15% Christian, a little under 5% Jewish, all living together for centuries. So what happened? What changed that? Well, it was an ideological movement that changed it, and it did not originate in that region. It originated in Europe and in the United States to a much greater degree than I had known. This was a movement called political Zionism. The intention and goal was to create a Jewish state in Palestine, even though that meant dispossessing 95% of the inhabitants. What struck me when I was writing my book, and still strikes me, is that Zionism is an extremely significant ideology. And yet most Americans have not heard about it and could not define it.
Yeah.
I went to a 50-year high school anniversary and I tried it out on some, very intelligent classmates.
Well, me prior to OCT7.
What Zionism is. And they would sort of say, let me think now, I've heard of that. What is that? That's what I would have answered. And yet we've all know socialism, communism, fascism, capitalism, etc. And yet Zionism has tragically impacted the Middle East, dangerously impacted the whole world, and has been extremely damaging to the United States as well. And most of us don't even know about it. Now, when I began to look,
I blame it on the. Let me tell you who that is.
these are
Hold on. That's
now when I began to
that was Allison Weir, an American activist and writer.
I wondered.
ALISON WEIR. Now I want to speak to that a moment. I didn't know much about it either prior to, after October 7th, and I think the whole world was shooken up. I was like, I better look into this. And it just took me a few hours to realize it was complete and total BS and who the problem child is over there. And it's not the Palestinians. And then I did a deep dive, as I do, because if I'm going to speak on something, I want to know it. And I watched Tantura. That's a heartbreaking documentary right there about what happened during the Nakba to that town in Palestine, and the occupation of the American mind. And of course, I'd already created the Great Awakening Guide at greatawakeningguide.com, which had, coming off of COVID, I was tuned in to the bullshit. And so I added a section in the Great Awakening Guide about Israel and Gaza. And so after watching those documentaries, a number of videos on YouTube, listening to, Jewish people say, hey, yeah, we're not with the Zionists. There's some crazy people like Miko Peled, a bunch of rabbis. I think Weiss comes to mind. So many, and did the deep dive there, watched a bunch of stuff and came to the conclusion very quickly that, it's a mess over there. And it doesn't surprise me. Governments, Ronald Reagan told us governments don't solve problems, they create them. And also watch the documentary, and I recommend this one at stopworldcontrol.com/Israel, The Mystery of Israel. That's a great documentary as well. Americans are waking up, they control us by two means. One is a soft level of control just by not telling us what's up, by not informing us about things that are related to their misgivings, to their misdoings. That's what I think she's talking about there. When you don't know about something, you can mislead a person by either not teaching them, keeping them ignorant, or straight up deceiving them. I think that's the two ways to deceive people. And both of them are highly effective. I forget what news person talked about this a few years ago. I heard them talk about it. Not telling them something or telling them something that's false. That's how they do it. And Americans are waking up because they're starting to see how it directly affects them. One, no one wants to get into WW3. And two, Americans are tired of sending all their tax dollars overseas and our government basically bending over backwards for foreign governments while we have issues here that they should be addressing. They represent us, right? It's just wild. It's just wild. Let's see here. What do we got? I want to be careful what I click on here. Let's see. This is Kim Jong-un. 980 or 36,000. Let's see what he has.
It's not only secular, because the founders of Zionism and the people, the Zionists today, are not only secular. They basically, many of them, hate Judaism. They hate God and his religion. For example, I have a friend of mine who grew up in Zionist education, grew up in Jerusalem. And he told me that what he was taught is that we, the Jewish people, have two enemies. Now guess who the two are and who the first is. The first is the religious Jew, and the second is the Arab. But that movement, the movement of Zionism, who is secular and who refuses to follow Judaism, they misuse this very same religion they refuse to follow, and they misuse it to justify crimes which are forbidden in this very same religion, because killing and stealing, oppressing an entire people, all of this is forbidden in Judaism. And as I said before, the whole concept, the idea of Zionism to build a sovereign homeland for Jews is in total contrast of Judaism. Us, people in the free world, should say something. This is unjust. This is unjust for the people of Palestine that this voice is attempted to be silenced. But it's not only doing injustice for the Palestinian people, this is doing injustice for the Jewish people as well, because when you conflate Judaism and Zionism, you conflate anti-Zionism with...
Okay, let me see. First comment here, track AIPAC. Yeah, I'm assuming you mean have transparency over AIPAC. I agree with that. I think there's some shady stuff going down. Let's see. Why do you need to cite a JEW? Why not just speak for yourself? Well, I do both, right? On my channel, I take in information, comment on it, correlate it with other things that I've picked up on my journey. But if you just speak and speak and speak, how do you let any new information in? I take in, I give out. It's a kind of a thing like that. And tonight specifically, we're doing a watch party, which is where we watch videos, share knowledge and information together, and comment on it. So that's why I cite these people, gathering information, putting it in our mind, seeing how it matches up with the world. That's the only way I know how to grow and, become a better, more informed person.
Anti-Semitism, you're making a statement as if all Jews support all what's going on, and as if all Jews are accountable to what's going on. But we always need to know better than that. And we try to educate people to understand that anti-Zionism has nothing to do with anti-Semitism, because Judaism and Zionism are not the same. Judaism is a religion. Zionism is a political movement. Should never be conflated. A lot of Jewish people in New York, many of them support Israel, but there's a massive community who is anti-Zionist. And people might not know because the mainstream media would never show you that. Like, for example, there was a couple of years ago, there was a huge mass anti-Zionist rally, a Jewish anti-Zionist rally in front of the Israeli consulate on 2nd Avenue, Manhattan. And then CBS would announce that there is a traffic jam on 2nd Avenue. And they would not say what the reason is. A number of my teachers were Holocaust survivors. And they were telling stories, terrible stories. And unfortunately, we're hearing similar stories now. This is something that should, the Jewish history in the Holocaust should be a lesson for Jewish people.
Yeah.
How to refuse this genocide taking place in Gaza. It's not only secular.
Yeah, that's good. That is, let me make sure I tell you who this is here.
On July 22.
That was one of the rabbis that I've
on July 22.
cited before. I might have lost it here. I apologize for that. That might have been Weiss. There's two that are very prominent speaking up. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, here's the Dan Bilzerian. Let's check this out. 68,000 views.
If you think anti-Semitism is bad now,
I don't know why that here. Hold on.
If you think
I don't know. I guess I can't find that one again. I apologize. It was Piers Morgan and Dan Bilzerian, and it was pretty good. I might have seen this one here. No, Michael Rappaport. I cannot stand that guy. He is so out of control. This is good. Now,
we are called to understand what the Bible says.
well, they're putting different pictures up for the videos. That was Kwame Tour. I shared him on my Instagram a year or so ago. He's got some good stuff too. In fact, let's try to find it. I like that one. I hope I said his name right. All right, here we go.
Zionism is a political philosophy which has brought about the state of Israel, the so-called state of Israel. This political philosophy has nothing to do with religion. On the contrary, it seeks to confuse others and let them think that Zionism and Judaism is one and the same. I am a conscious African. I know properly my history. I know that Africa gave Judaism to the world. I know that the first Jews in the world were Africans. Not only do I know this, but I inform everyone who has doubts about it to read a book by Sigmund Freud entitled Moses and Monotheism as a beginning. Consequently, I know that Judaism and Zionism are not the same. Zionism had its first organizational expressions in 1897 in Basel, Switzerland, in Europe. Here was a man by the name of Theodor Herzl, H-E-R-Z-L. He was the founder of Zionism. He said that he was going to find the state that God promised the Jews. Listen to this very carefully. This man, Herzl, was an atheist. He believed that there was no God. He said God did not exist. Now, how is it the man who believes that God does not exist is going to find a state that God promised to his chosen people? I'm telling you, this man is Satan in disguise. Zionism is a satanic movement. It is devil. It is imperialism. It is racist. It has gone and taken the lands of the Palestinian people and through terrorism has driven them out. And through terrorism, it maintains its power. And the United States of America, with over 6 million homeless, sends to Israel billions and billions and billions of dollars everywhere to bomb Palestinian people while homeless people are here and unemployed are here. Zionism is going to raise this war and make the people of America become clear to Zionism is a political
I love it. That's Kwame Tour, Kwameture, a civil rights activist, writer, and known as a lead figure within the Pan-African. I ran across him a while back. You know, you got to respect the boldness of that guy. I mean, that is super awesome. He educated me quite a bit about it. Let's go back to Zionism here and see what we got. Oh, let's see this one. This has 10.1 million views. Here we go. This is Chris Hedges, I believe.
Quick lesson. Being anti-Zionism is not the same as being like anti-Jew. I have nothing against the Jewish people. I'm a Christian. And
obviously this isn't Chris Hedges. They put the different picture up, but let's hear him out. Maybe he's going to reference him.
You know, the Old Testament is all Hebrew, which is Judaism. There is Judaism all throughout Christianity. And I don't know if everybody really realizes that most of the time. But so anyways, there are things within Judaism that are.
I'm going to stop it. He's a little slow. We want to keep the pace up here. I hope that's what you weren't into that. Let's see. No. Sometimes, let me see. I don't know. Let's see.
Well,
I can't tell whether they're using thumbnails.
Want to establish a new Israel as the center of a one world government. In order to accomplish their goal, they, however, had to do one very important thing. They needed the support of the worldwide Christian community. They needed the churches on their side. So in the 19th century, before...
By the way, this is from that documentary called The Mystery of Israel at stopworldcontrol.com/Israel. And that link is inside the Great Awakening Guide at greatawakeningguide.com. But this is a clip from that documentary. I found it to be wonderful. Check it out here. We got maybe another minute and a half here.
Israel was founded. The Rothschilds worked closely with several people in Christianity. They attracted a man called Cyrus Scofield. He was a convicted criminal lawyer, an expert in fraud and forgery. He was asked to create a new Bible, the Scofield Study Bible. This was the first Bible in all of history to contain hundreds of footnotes. In these footnotes, a new doctrine was introduced into the American Evangelical Church, which says that there was to come a new political military Israel, and that would be the place where the Messiah would come to rule the world. And they said that would be the fulfillment of the promise that God had made to Abraham, and that would also be the fulfillment of the promise that Christ would return to earth. This Bible was then spread all throughout America through the Moody Bible Institute, and it became the foundation for the current day evangelical theology. Nobody was aware that this Bible was directly funded by Satanists, and that it served the agenda to get Christianity on their side for establishing a new Israel that would become the headquarters of their one world government. And again, I know that all this sounds outrageous to many people who have never heard this before, but you can research this. And I encourage you to do your due diligence. Yeah. I've studied this for decades, and I know what I'm talking about. But it's very difficult sometimes when you talk to people who are not informed, who have simply accepted a certain mindset, who have blindly believed that, and who repeat it to everybody else without ever doing their research. But all this is historical fact. The Scofield Study Bible was published by the Oxford University Press, which was owned by the Rothschilds. And this whole theology was first written out by John Darby, whose family owned the most haunted castle in the world, Leap Castle, where 150 dead bodies were found in the cellars and where satanic masses were held. John Darby used all kinds of occult terms in his religious writings. He was involved in many secret societies and occult groups. And he is the one who educated Cyrus Scofield. And John Darby was an employee of the Rothschilds. He worked for the East India Company. The Scofield Study Bible literally said that everyone who supported this new Israel would be blessed by God, and everyone who did not support it would be cursed by God. So fear and intimidation was used to force Christians to be on their side, and they succeeded.
Yeah. That sound familiar? I mean, do you see that in the comments? And if you go down these rabbit holes, yeah, that movie opened my eyes. I mean, imagine me not walking the Christian path prior to COVID. COVID comes on the scene and I'm like, holy shit, I see pure evil in the world, and it wakes me up, and I realized these Christians were right all along. Like, I never saw it before, but when you see something like that go down in the world and you're like, holy shit. So it pushed me toward Christianity. Now, let's be clear. I've got some questions about Christianity as well. The main one being, why in the world would our creator put us down here on planet Earth with that one guy that these people worship, and basically can do whatever he wants to us. He offered Jesus the deal. He said, hey, Jesus, allegedly, right? I still have a lot of questions about Christianity. He says, hey, Jesus, you want to go in on me and run this world with me? And Jesus is like, no, I'm paraphrasing, of course. No, I'm good. I don't want to do that. But I now believe that Satan went to every other person of influence in the world and offered them the same deal. And a lot of them clearly took him up on it. I mean, material wealth, abundance, prosperity, money, anything you want to be an agent. And that's what I think happened. But anyways, that documentary is fantastic. He opened my eyes big time. Here's a clip from a good one. If it is, in fact, the clip, the other Israel, Ted Pike. No, it's I don't know what it is. They seem to be using different. Let me see here. No, it's It might be one off.
And also that
No, I don't know what they're doing. I don't like it when they use a thumbnail that doesn't line up, unless it's just a glitch in the system.
the Hamas supporters in Britain.
No, that's this kid. Let's see. Hope it's real. No. Yeah, the thumbnails, I apologize for that. The thumbnails aren't lining up here, or don't appear to be anyway. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll wrap it up there. I hope you got something out of this. You know, I like doing a deep dive because I realize that we're all connected. That's my thing. I mean, sometimes people ask me in comments, you know, why should we care about what's going on over there? And I say to myself, yes, you know, if you read Albert Pike's letter to Mazzini from late 1800s, things appear to be lining up very nicely, right? They will, what do they say? They will, agitate and stoke the Arab against the JEW, and it could pull the whole world into, a war situation. And the other reason that I am wanting to educate myself and talk about these things and share things on my social media is because I know they did it in WW2 and won, right? That's the wars, but I also know they've orchestrated financial collapses behind the scenes, right? 2008, there was some shady things going on there. Early 2000s, what was that? The tech.com bubble. And of course, there've been many little ones, before that, but the main big one, the Great Depression. I shared a clip on my on my YouTube and social media about the Great Depression, and there were trades and insider bullshit going on, just like all those other 08, early 2000s, etc., that people had to know. They knew, and they got out of the system before it collapsed. And the quote unquote common man and common woman, I don't like that term, but for lack of a better word, all of the rest of Americans got left holding the bag. And those people, the insiders, the billionaires and millionaires of the time, I don't know if there were billionaires back then, but the millionaires of the time, they made out like bandits, literally and figuratively. And so I just look at history more now than I ever have before, because you will know them by their fruits. And if you want to know what's going to happen in the future, you can look at the past. And while I've got you, I also want to recommend, if you're interested in protecting and or positioning yourself and your assets, your financial assets, for a potential coming collapse. We know it happened in 2008. Stock market was down 40-ish%. It did come back, as many experts said it would. But a lot of people lost, not a lot of people, some people. I know people who lost money. They were in the housing market or the spec building market. Build one, make money, build two, make money, build three or four, collapse, done. If you want to protect your financial assets, go watch The Great Taking by David Rogers Webb. It's on YouTube. I've also got a review on my YouTube channel in the review section, or review series. It's about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes long, but it's slow at the beginning. The first half is kind of I don't want to say boring, but it's slow, but at a halfway point, it picks up and it's like a freaking rocket, because he brings in what the CIA's been doing. He brings in all of the money manipulation and how it affects not only the financial market in America, but also global. But I'm going to give you the Great Taking in a nutshell. The Great Taking is this. Apparently, allegedly, these bad actors in the world who have orchestrated all the prior financial collapses have modified the Uniform Commercial Code in all 50 states and done other things, set up this, bullshit to sweep assets if and when the next financial collapse happens. Remember in 2008, and this happens all the time with these financial collapses, the government always writes a debt note, and a debt note from Americans, like Americans will pay and it piles on the national debt. Where are we? 36, 37 trillion now, piles on the national debt, and they give the money to their friends on Wall Street. And then also in 2008, they gave it to the insurance companies. I think it was AIG got a big amount because they're too big to fail, right? You can't let those fail. But so what they're going to do now, allegedly, based on what David Rogers Webb is talking about, and his research, is they will not give money anymore. They will sweep assets, and anything that is collateralized by debt will be taken, could be taken, right? When they say stuff like that, I'm all ears. I'm like, yep, tell me more. Again, because these people are super creative. These bad actors are super creative, financial geniuses. I use geniuses in a negative way, but they are geniuses, and they're very determined. All they have, their whole mission in life, is to sit around in think tanks and sit around at big tables and boardrooms and think how they can steal and rob. They're pirates. I get that from the documentary Everything is a Rich Man's Trick on YouTube. It's 3 hours, fantastic. But they are pirates. Again, you will know them by their fruits. If they act like a pirate, if they do things that remind you of a pirate, they're probably a pirate, right? Or a marauder, a thief, a stealer, right? And so, check out the David Rogers Webb documentary, The Great Taking, but also there's a bunch of videos online and interviews with him. Stansberry Research has a bunch of them, and some other people are talking about it. And use your own judgment. But some people say this: if you can, own what you own outright. That means anything that is collateralized by debt. That could protect you to a degree. Again, you do what you need to do. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just sharing information and entertainment. But that's one option, to get rid of, to own things outright. Don't have things collateralized by debt. Another option, some people recommend, again, not making advice, is to use Bitcoin. And another option what's the word? To like invest, diversify. I don't know what I was spacing it. Diversify your investments, and also gold and silver. I do some of those things. I do not do all of those things. It's a sketchy time. Everyone's got to kind of think for themselves. But again, I'm pretty sure something else is going to go down because it's already gone down. Our financial market, our financial system in America is a house of cards. There is very little, if anything, holding it up, other than the fact that the Fed keeps printing money, and that we have an army or military all around the globe saying, "Oh yeah, you'll use dollars." But people, what was it? Just a year or two ago, I think 2 years ago, Saudi already said they're not doing the petrodollar anymore. Now, I didn't do a deep dive into that to see the ramifications of what that will mean, but people, it's happening. Ray Dalio talked about it. The changing world order. It's going to happen. It always happens. Someone the other day on one of my live streams said about every 250 years, we're in the ballpark. I'd rather be prepared than just sitting pretending like nothing's going to happen. And I will say this, because of COVID and so many people woke up, I'm one of them, and their spidey sense is super tuned in, like super aware of what's going down. And then it's just like, then you start connecting all the dots and you see, why they potentially did COVID, topic for another story, why they potentially did, the 2008, financial debauchery. It's all about money, right? Then you look and see BlackRock's connection and Larry Fink's connection, and it's all about money, power, and control. And I believe there's a deeper, more nefarious agenda. And I do believe it lines up with what that guy from the Mystery of Israel talks about at stopworldcontrol.com/Israel. I forget his name at the moment, David something. I believe it's a deeper, more nefarious agenda. Again, why I got real cozy with Christianity. Let me see what you say here. Trump, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on. Yeah. I think people are waking up to the Trump situation as well. I'm one of them. I used to believe that, when he first came on the scene and when he lost to Biden, I was bummed out. I bought the BS. I don't buy it anymore. Too many things, again, when you look and analyze the situation, too many things don't add up. Giving millions of dollars to pharma companies, not a good look. The worst corporations on the planet based on, this is what's wild, based on fines levied from the Department of Justice. That's absolutely wild. So it's the government's own agency says they're the most corrupt, fraudulent companies on the planet. And then FDA, CDC says, yeah, tested and approved, safe and effective. Make it make sense. That's big. No JFK files, no Epstein files, bombing Iran, and icing on the cake. Those are all icings, but the another icing on the cake is Trump giving millions to Palantir and pushing AI, mRNA, whatever. I don't understand it. I couldn't understand the first mRNA. Went right over my head. And believe me, I tried. I watched tons of videos. I was always skeptical of the government. In 2020, I didn't know what they were up to. I just knew they were up to something. They're always up to some bullshit. Always. And I don't pay much attention, but as I started diving in, as it started to ramp up, then I got real curious and I was like, I got to find out what's going on here. And I can't wrap my mind around mRNA. I can't understand it. I don't understand why I would want it in my body doing things. Makes no sense to me. But then again, I'm just one guy. But yeah, too many things adding up and people are starting to wake up. Ryan Stewman, Ron Paul forever. I like Ron Paul. I quote Ron Paul all the time. My favorite quote of his is, and it's truer every day than it was the day prior, is, in an empire of lies, truth is treason. I say it all the time because that's what it feels like sometimes. When you have mass media mind control and herd mentality. Who is the guy who did the documentary on it? He called it mass formation psychosis. Remember that? I forget his name. When you have mass formation psychosis and people in a herd mentality and you're like, hey, what's going on here? Well, what's going on? And if you say something truthful, like, hey, do you really want to trust the pharma industry? They attack you. And it's like, in an empire of lies, truth is treason. Libertarian right needs a resurgence. Yeah, I move that direction. I lean that direction. And even as my friend Brandon Kroll talks about, he calls it like anarcho, or maybe I'm thinking of he calls it anarcho-libertarian, and I believe that's also what Jeff from Dollar Vigilante, I forget his name, Jeff Berwick, Dollar Vigilante. That guy's a pretty interesting character as himself. But yeah, narco-libertarian. Clearly, government isn't serving people. It's not working. It's working for a very small few. The puppeteers behind the streams, the private central bankers, or behind the scenes, the private central bankers. It's not working for the anarcho-capitalism was coined by Rothbard. Okay, Rothbard. Yeah, someone mentioned him on my channel prior, and I forget what the context was. I think I would posted something, and is it Murray Rothbard? Is that the guy? And they also mentioned the guy that made Jones Plantation. I forget his name at the moment too. There's a lot of things are going on, but I think most people see government and see the left and the right are just two wings of the same bird. Nothing really ever changes. And I think the Trump situation is I think the Trump psyop trick, everything is a rich man's trick, is quickly collapsing. The problem is capitalism. Maybe I'm still on the fence because I don't know what the problem is. I know a lot of people point the finger at capitalism. Sorry, but there is no left. I think the left-right narrative is a way to keep us divided. There does appear to be a left because I know people who buy into those narratives. Now, having said that, in all fairness, I've bought into a lot of right narratives, conservative narratives that I now no longer buy into. I just go out as a human being into the world. No real capital in consumption or savings. A delay in consumption. Yeah, I don't know. Something's not working. Let me say this, and then let me know what you think about this. The way I look at it is, all I see is corruption. I don't know if we've had true capitalism. I see corruption, and that goes back to what the biggest problem facing humanity, in my opinion, and let me know what you think about this, is corruption. And the overarching theme, the biggest problem facing humanity is the consolidation of wealth, power, and control into the hands of a very few. That's how I see it. And I don't think that's part of capitalism. It's certainly not part of, democracy or libertarian. It's straight up corruption. It's like, hey, I have money. I'm going to buy these politicians to have them work on my behalf to make my corporation, or then you get the CIA arm in the hand of it, and that's straight up mob mafia, gangster capital. That's gangster capitalism, like Smedley Butler was talking about. So I don't think we've had true capitalism. That's my assessment. I see corruption, and it just hurts everyone. And the reason Americans are waking up, and this is why I'm waking up, and this makes me super selfish, but I got to be real about it, is when it starts to pinch us, right? When it starts to come home. Americans have been, well, maybe not all Americans, but America has been doing dirty deeds all over this globe for a long time. In South America in the early 1900s, exploiting, robbing resources, going in, securing land and space for corporations. That's what I'm talking about, the corruption. It's just a crappy situation. And we have a lot of amends to make. That's why I want to be talking about these things and being part of the solution, because I was ignorant for so long. I was a stupid, dumb, ignorant American, entertaining myself, partaking of bread and circuses, watching movies coming out of Hollywood, right? I don't watch hardly any movies in Hollywood anymore because I know them now to be all mind control, and, consuming, buying shit, while my brothers and sisters all over the globe are suffering because of my ignorance. I'm done with it. All they do is print funny money. That's not real capital. Amen to that statement right there. Yeah, the printing that's why Americans are starting to get pissed too. And again, because we weren't taught this in school, we didn't have Milton Friedman come to our class and say, hey, Washington creates inflation. And the reason they do it, the way they do it, is because they gave the Federal Reserve in 1910, 1912, 1913, I think it was, the ability to manage our money. And when they print money, inflation happens and it lowers the value of dollars in our pockets. And Americans are getting pissed because it's an invisible tax. And then they use that money that they print to buy real assets. So they're literally thieves. That's why I go back to pirates, the pirates analogy. Knowledge is power. Amen. I love that statement. I think about it all the time. In fact, it's on the cover of the Great Awakening Guide at greatawakeningguide.com. I'll be putting it on the shelf back here soon, but I haven't done that yet. Yeah, I agree. Knowledge is power. That is the way, back to what I was talking about earlier, that they enslave us by keeping us ignorant, not telling us the truth, and also by deceiving us, outright lying to us. The lies could be, or are, in my opinion, we're going into Iraq and Libya to spread freedom and democracy, to liberate the Iraqi people and the Libyan people from a brutal, oppressive dictator. Behind the scenes, what they didn't tell Americans is, they both wanted to sell their oil for gold. That's a big problem for the people that run this country and the world. And also, they didn't tell Americans that in the process of bringing freedom and democracy, we're going to unalive 2 to 3 million in Iraq, including the 500,000 children, mostly, from my understanding, by sanctions, starvation, and by sanctions on medical supplies and food, some straight up bullshit. And then in Libya, the icing on the cake, the cherry on the top of the cake, was bombing the eighth wonder of the world. I mean, I'm not saying Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi we're the best guys, but I know we're not, and we're part of the problem. I was part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution, and the Fed. Amen to that. In 1913, we got the federal income tax and the Federal Reserve. Yes. It's just so wild. And that's so long ago. Can you imagine? Over 100 years ago, this BS has been going on. And then when you start to look into the situation and the events leading up to the sinking of the Titanic, it gets even wilder. And then you see crazy things going on here today, like, CEOs dying in mysterious, suspicious ways, pivotal whistleblowers being unalived. I mean, it's so sinister and sick. Sometimes I wish I didn't. Sometimes I wish I could go back to being ignorant about what's going on in this world. But once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. Let's see. The best pay occupation is the entertainment. Yes, it is. That entertainment and sports, right? That's the bread and circuses. My vision, I was thinking about this today. My vision is for every American to pull their energy from entertainment industry, professional sports, politicians, and put it into their purpose, put it in, or even do nothing with it. Go for a walk in nature and never come back. That's the way they keep their power, is we give it to them, right? Watching their stupid movies, watching their stupid sporting events. Meanwhile, again, our brothers and sisters are suffering around the world, and it's coming to us. What's his name? Ken O'Keefe. I love that guy. He nailed it when he said Gaza's coming to you. It is coming to us if we don't wake up. Some people seem to have forgotten that how a person treats one person is how they treat all people. If they'll do it to them, they'll do it to us. Again, selfish on me, bad on me for not knowing and being aware earlier, if they'll do it to them, they'll do it to you. It's not personal. It's just business. I pray that people wake up and see how they're treating the people in Palestine, and how they're treating the people in the neighboring countries, and how they treated the people in Iraq, and how they treat the people in Libya. And then this is what I also like to remind Americans about, because I feel that, again, sharing knowledge and information with one another, helping each other wake up. I know I get a lot of help from other people, just doing my part, giving it back, right? They've been doing it to us here in America. But the problem is, they haven't been dropping bombs on us in America. They've been using silent weapons for quiet wars. In the food, in the water, in the air, in the movies. Thanks for your comment about the entertainment industry. In the books, in the magazines, in the newspapers. That's the poisoning of the mind. That's the battlefield in America. You don't drop bombs on America, right? America drops bombs on you. But you want to undermine and subvert a society, you use all those ways. I mean, I go into the grocery store these days, and because I know about the food industry and what's in this food, I pray every time that people don't buy it. The preservatives, the seed oils, the sugars, the toxins is crazy. I think it clogs up our ability to think, and the welfare state. Yeah. Cloward Piven type stuff, sink the ship, make everyone on their knees and poor, then they'll have to submit. Right. I think that's what they're doing. This is what's so frustrating when you look at what's happening in America. Is they're doing financial warfare. They have to break Americans, right? They're doing all warfare. They're hitting it on all levels. Mental, in the movies, in the books, in the music. Physical, with the food and the toxins all over. Plastic clothing, toxins in the air, toxins in the soil. Emotional and spiritual and financial. Financial is a big piece of the puzzle. Let's see. That's false. People actually paid off credit card debt. If you print money and then people pay off debt, which is money deletion, the inflation now has to do with corporations could raise prices. Let me see if I can wrap my mind around what your thought is here. People actually paid off credit card debt. I don't know that are people paying off credit card debt? I haven't found that. My understanding is people are using credit cards now more than ever to make ends meet. Many people are. And I'm not saying some haven't. If you print money and then people pay off debt, which is money deletion, the inflation now has to do with corporations. So I think what you're saying is corporations are kind of taking advantage of situations. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. But again, I just think of what Milton Friedman said, that, only Washington has the ability to create inflation because they're the only ones that can print money. Corporations could be piling in on the greed. There is that very real possibility. and just kind of taking advantage. The Fed is just the scorekeeper. Congress controls the purse. I've never heard of corporations lobbying the Fed. They lobby Congress. That makes sense. Yeah, the Fed is just the scorekeeper. I actually feel that the Fed, I know you're replying to this other gentleman, but I feel the Fed is kind of like, for lack of a better word, like the king of the pile. Because, and again, back to what Ken O'Keefe says, finance is the head of the snake. They control everything by finance. This is how they buy the politicians. This is how they buy, bombs and military stuff. This is how they manipulate the whole world. This is how they do the entertainment industry, how they do the sports industry. If you control the money, you control everything. So I think they're actually, when Congress gave the Fed the ability to print money, they basically handed over the keys to the kingdom, in my perspective. Mr. Clean, I get that a little bit. Thank you for the magic eraser. You're welcome. You're welcome, Mr. Clean again. If you control a nation's money supply, it doesn't matter who makes the laws. Amen to that. That's what I believe. Because then you basically enslave people and ensnare them in a money trap. Everyone needs money in this world. The goal is, when a lot of people are starting to figure this out, the more you can extricate yourself from all of the systems of control, education system, financial system, healthcare system, all of them, the more you can get out of them, the better off you're going to be, because they will use those to enslave us. There is no doubt about it. I agree. Actors, movie stars, singers, sports stars, they are all millionaires. Yes, they are. They're tools, they're assets for the people that control the world. That's how I view them. They're assets and they're influencers, right? Influential. Go carnivore for health. Yeah, I've heard that a lot. I've embraced that fairly well recently, although I did move back towards plants after a little incident with my eye. Now I do a deeper blend, and the thing I was I was not doing it right with carnivore is I was eating some, not a lot, processed meat products, and I should have known better. I should have known better. Now I'm like, I've always known single ingredients the best, but it's easy to get off in the weeds. It's easy to off track, but carnivore, yeah, I do mix in a hearty amount of vegetables as well, but I'm all about it. Basically whole foods, single ingredients. Technocrats, yes. A friend texted me this morning about speaking of technocrats, I guess they're gathering in Sun Valley now for their little summer camp. Who knows what they're going to be talking about? Nothing good though. All of them are there. Head of Apple, what's his name? Forget his name at the moment. Google's there. All of them are there. They're all there doing whatever they do. The billionaires are here. Technocratic society. They are slowly taking control. My hope is that people wake up before that happens. My hope is that, and I think they are losing ground faster than they can get their technocratic control system and grid system in place, because people have had it, hide their greed. Yep. To control the world, there are 4 pillars: money, food, medicine, and energy. That's really good. I like that. Thank you for sharing. That's a good point. Cook. Yes, Cook. That's his name. 2 things I recommend: reading or watching. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I'm glad you brought this up. Thank you, because he's been on my list. I've seen clips. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Thank you for that. This is what I love, the sharing of knowledge and information. And you had 2 here: Confessions of an Economic Hitman and The Creature from Jekyll Island. G. Edward Griffin, one of my faves. I love that guy. I still can't. I think he's like 94, 5 or 6. Still looks amazing and kicking, mind sharp. I mean, that guy is a gem. He's a gem to this world. Thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. If a volcano erupted tomorrow and the smoke covered the skies and no food could be grown, you think that would cause inflation? Let me wrap my mind around this. If a volcano erupted tomorrow and the smoke covered the skies, okay, I know you're talking to another person there, but no food could be grown. Do you think that would cause inflation? I don't know. That's a conundrum. I think it would cause chaos very quickly. Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and I also find a lot of the videos on YouTube as well. More like economic collapse, maybe. Oh, you're talking to me. Okay, well, let me revisit it. If a volcano erupted tomorrow and the smoke covered the skies and no food could be grown, you think that would cause? I just think it would cause chaos. I don't know what it would cause. Mass calamity. I think inflation might be a small part of our worries, because again, I think there would be a collapse within hours, if not days. More like economic collapse, maybe. The answer, yes, because everyone has to eat. All right, I'll give you that. I'll agree with that. I mean, I don't. Yeah, people would. So you're saying the cost of food and everything would go through the roof? Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah, scarcity type things. I buy it. We would all be wealthy if we went back to the gold standard, how it was meant to be. I don't know a lot about the gold standard, but I know our current system isn't working. That's for sure. Something isn't working. And I think, going back to some stability, and many people have talked about that. That's something that could be coming down the line. If and when our system collapses, they'll start again in a better way. Hopefully we don't have the bad actors in control, though. Pretty sure calamity would destroy the modern economic system. Yeah. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your, suggestions and ideas. Always appreciate those. That's how I learn. And until next time, I wish you guys all the best health, wealth, and success. You can follow anywhere at GMarkPhillips on any social media platform. Let me read your last comment here. I heard a story about some big hedge fund dude. He was invited to a meeting with all the big AI guys. God bless you too. I appreciate you. He asked, are there security measures? They all said no. Yeah, I've heard that too about AI. What was it, a couple weeks ago? AI allegedly rewrote its code not to shut down when they asked it to shut down. That's some scary stuff. Then they did a panel asking if AI will take over. It's all about resources. Yeah, I buy it. Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate you for watching. All right. Thank you guys and gals. I will talk to you in the next one. Have an awesome night.